So I'm going to do another video of artifacts for my growing binder of history. And I think what I'm in fact getting here with these artifacts is a really good sort of textbook on history from the 19th century through World War II. It's really turning into something very cool here. And I'm going to open up another pack and put in new pages now. So I bought, when I was in London, I bought these packs. They're pretty easy to find. There was a place called the Advertising Museum that had all of them. But I did buy this one at the Churchill Museum. And if you want to find these for yourself, if you're interested, the website is www.mempackompany.com. It's mempackcompany.com, which is short for memorabilia pack. And as you can see, I paid £8 for this one. But online, I want to say maybe they're $14 or $15, and I think it ships from England. So, but anyway, when I went to the Churchill War Rooms, I picked this up, and it's got a lot of cool stuff in it, I can tell, but I haven't opened it yet. So I got another pack of legal size clear sheet pockets that I can use to start a new chapter in my book. And we're ready to go. Got my sheet protectors, and I have my Winston Churchill replica pack. On the back, it shows what you can expect to find in the pack. This is the only pack I've seen so far that has a button in it, right here, which is really cool. All of these packs always have the cigarette cards in them, so there's always going to be a section for that. I have dividers for those as well, but I'll put them in later. Actually, let's go with the now I like to save this part too, so I take this off very carefully. Okay. And very carefully remove the staples. So I have this little part I like to save. And the first thing I take out, first open it, and I take out the little information card. So in case we're stumped on what something is, we can refer to this. This also shows you the other packs you can get. Homefront, Victorian Household, Blitz, RAF at War, World War I, Seaside Holidays, Steam Trains, Home Guard, 1950s Household, Suffragettes, Motoring, Children's War. I mean, there's so many. The Titanic one, Christmas Past. I mean, there's when I go back to London, I'll probably be picking up some more of these. Or this is the address of the company. We would like to thank the following organizations for their assistance with this publication: Churchill Archive Center, Churchill College, Cambridge, National Archives, University of St. Andrews Library, and Imperial War Museum. So, and then they mentioned if they didn't give you credit, they just to contact them. So this should be all about Winston Churchill's life. So I'm going to start with the cigarette cards. And these are always just kind of interesting. So, and these cigarette cards feature Churchill through his life, Winston Spencer Churchill. And just on the back, just blank on the back, War Series, the Right Honorable Winston Churchill, First Lord British Admiralty. Then badges and flags of British regiments, the 21st Lancers, and then issued by John Players and Sons cigarettes. Mr. Winston Churchill from Pretoria, 1899. Famous escapes. Mr. Winston Churchill captured by the Boer near Ladysmith. Mr. Churchill was interred at the State School, Pretoria. From there, he escaped alone on the night of December 12th. So that's kind of, he was an action man. We always kind of know him as the Prime Minister. We see him in movies like The Darkest Hour or the TV show The Crown, played by John Lithgow. We see him kind of hunched over, but he was an action man through his life. Mr. Winston Churchill here. This is where we start to recognize him. British war leaders, Mr. Winston Churchill, this cigarette card. Here's more of a modern art take on him. Straight Line Caricatures, series of 50. So this was by John Player and Sons. So they did pictures with straight lines. And then finally, the Right Honorable Winston Churchill. Has he ever served a foreign government? Right Honorable Winston Churchill was born in 1874 and entered the Army in 1895. He served in various military expeditions, including Malaccaland, Tira, and the Nile, and was present at the Battle of Omdurman. So he did a lot in his life. Now I'm going to take these apart and file them. But I next want to show you Men of the Moment, this card. The Right Honorable Winston S. Churchill, First Lord of the Admiralty. And on the back it says, the Premier's Challenge. I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. And that's a quote from Winston Churchill in 1940 that was delivered on the radio during the Battle of Britain, when England was... He was keeping England afloat with his inspirational radio broadcast, just like President Roosevelt was keeping us afloat with his fireside chats during the Great Depression. At the darkest hour, you could say Winston Churchill was he was the bulldog that sort of kept everyone's spirits up. So this is a kind of heraldic-looking illuminated manuscript about him, which I think is a really cool thing. It's even something you could frame. So I think I'm going to have this facing out. Free Trade League, Northwest Manchester Division Branch, meeting in the hall of the Midland Hotel, Wednesday afternoon, June 15th, 1904. Mr. Winston S. Churchill, Minister of Parliament, will address the businessmen of Manchester on the fiscal question. Chairman Mr. A.E. Leaf, and this is an admission ticket. And the doors open at 2:15. The commencement will be at 3 o'clock. So there's the back of it sort of faded through. So that's just an item where Mr. Winston Churchill was speaking in 1904. Try to unfold some interesting stuff. Here's a document. Secret. May 1915. First Lord, the time has come when I must place on record my conviction that an attack by the fleet on the Dardanelles forts, or any attempt to rush the straits without assistance from the army, is doomed to failure, and is fraught with possibilities of disaster out of all proportion to any advantage to be expected therefrom. I have always insisted that the North Sea is the proper theater of operations of our fleet, since there alone it is possible for the enemy to cause an irreparable disaster. For this reason I have looked in with misgiving on the drain of naval forces to the Dardanelles, which has been carried out so gradually that it has been difficult for me to decide at which point danger has occasioned in the North Sea. If you look at this date, you'll know this is regarding World War I, which occurred between 1914 and 1918. In my opinion, we cannot afford to expose any more ships to the risk or loss of the Dardanelles, since the ships there, though not consisting in the main first-line units, are the reserve on which we depend for supremacy in the event of an unforeseen disaster. That ships sent up to the sea of Marmora before the forts have been occupied by the army would be exposed to great danger cannot, in my opinion, be disputed. Before the naval attack of March 19th, I expressed the opinion at the War Council that the whole operation, if pressed to a conclusion, would entail a loss of 12 battleships. So he is giving Admiralty advice during World War I in this letter. And this is May 11th, 1915. And he closes with some more details. He closes, for the above reasons, I cannot, under any circumstances, be a party to any order to Admiral de Roebuck to make an attack to pass the Dardanelles until the shores have been occupied. I consider that naval section unsupported by the army would merely lead to heavy losses of ships and invaluable men. So he's giving his opinion about a proposed attack that he thinks is not thought out very well. And now we're going to put this document in its sleeve. Let's see if we can fit one more in here. This is a report card from March 1st to April 9th, 1884 for Churchill at St. George's School. Place in school in order of division at the end of the last term, 5th place. Present place in new school order from C6 place. I'm not exactly sure how to read a British report card. Composition improved. Translation improved. Grammar improved. Diligence. Conduct has been exceedingly bad. He is not to be trusted to do any one thing. He has, however, notwithstanding, made decided progress. So he got pretty bad marks. Very disgraceful. Number of times late. 20. He was late 20 times, which was very disgraceful. Very bad. Mathematics improved. French improved. German, I guess not applicable. Scripture, 60 out of 120, so he's at 50%. History and geography, very good, especially history. Well, that seems to make sense. Writing and spelling, both very much improved. Music, promising. Drawing, fair considering. Which is odd, because he became a pretty accomplished artist. General conduct, very bad. Is a constant trouble to everybody, and is always in some scrape or other. He cannot be trusted to behave himself anywhere. He has very good abilities. Wow, not a very good report card for the future greatest Prime Minister of England. And on that subject, I was looking at rankings of Prime Ministers by various bodies of authority. And as the man I am, the only body of authority I care about is the general working public. I don't really care for academics very much, and I noticed that the general public consider him the greatest Prime Minister of England, the general public of England. But the academics, the educators, the revisionists have always put him behind other Prime Ministers. They always put Anthony Eden at last, but they always put Churchill behind Thatcher or Macmillan or other prime ministers, and I find that interesting because I think the opinion that matters is the opinion of the people, and the people have, despite the fact that there has been a campaign to discredit him or to trash him by using today's standards to evaluate his conduct then, he still holds up and is still beloved, which I think is a good thing. It shows that despite the best efforts of our academics today and our revisionists, we still know greatness. Beating the invader, a message from the Prime Minister. So this is later. This is later on by one of the three men who guided the free world through World War II. Beating the invader, a message from the Prime Minister. If invasion comes, everyone, young or old, men and women, will be eager to play their part worthily. By far, the greater part of the country will not be immediately involved. Even along our coast, the greater part will remain unaffected. But where the enemy lands or tries to land, there will be the most fighting. Not only will there be the battles when the enemy tries to come ashore, but afterwards there will fall upon his lodgements very heavy British counterattacks, and all the time the lodgements will be under the heaviest attack by British bombers. So, carry on, stand firm, keep calm and carry on. We use that a lot to get through our first world problems. And I will just say right now, I know we're all going through a pandemic this year, and many people are saying that 2020 is the worst year. It's not. Imagine living in London in 1939. Imagine rationing all the way through the 50s. Imagine everything that these people went through when we're just have to go a year with a little bit of social distancing and wearing a mask. The times we need to remember our history. We need to remember that we have been through much worse times than some inconvenience caused by a pandemic. And I know this hasn't been the best year. It hasn't been for me. But we should never ever forget what our ancestors went through so we could have the things we have and enjoy today. Here's some more photographs of Churchill, and I think that might be his wife. There is this famous victory salute here. A picture of Churchill and Eisenhower in front of some people call them an R4D, a C-47 troop transport plane during the Blitz out there in the streets, coming out of 10 Downing Street. So, just an amazing person. Another, let us go forward together. Another poster to inspire confidence and there has been a big effort in the world today, and I know that people were upset by lots of things, but trashing heroes from the past, especially, applying today's standards against them, I dare say that anyone born before 1980 now could be deemed as on the wrong side of history with the constantly moving standards that we continually are applying to ourselves. And Churchill was definitely a brusque and he was outspoken, and he might have been offensive. But who do you want leading you when you're being bombed every day? I mean, I don't think you want a shrieking violet either. So, this is the spirit of Britain. And I just have so much respect and admiration for the people of Britain in the 30s and 40s who got through this. We in America, with the exception of Pearl Harbor, which wasn't even a state then, we never got bombed during World War II. And these people went through so much. This is Winston Churchill's birth room. Some more photographs of people, of places in his life. Sandhurst, the school where he went to. Chartwell, where he went to after his wilderness years. This is Mr. Winston Churchill wearing his steel helmet and a smile of confidence. And on the back, it's when he was a Minister of Parliament, much younger. So we will be putting these away. And I love it when they throw in a newspaper. So here's the Daily Sketch. Fourpence. This is Saturday, January 30th, 1965. Oh, I think this is the death of Winston Churchill. I think we're going all over the place. 90 Years in Pictures, a sketch tribute. Here's the back of it. In an English country garden, the shadows lengthen, the end of the day. Nothing can fill this awful gap. Nothing can assuage or comfort the loneliness and deprivation which fall upon wife and children when the prop and center of their home is suddenly snatched away. Only faith in a life after death, in a brighter world where dear ones will meet again. Only that and the measured tramp of time can give consolation. The words that Churchill said about the loss of a loved one in war that will now be applied to him. Farewell by a queen and 4 kings. Charles and Anne drive from the palace in a night of royal homage. Charles being Prince Charles and Princess Anne. At this point, Prince Andrew was 5 years old. A queen and 4 kings joined a great royal act of homage to Sir Winston Churchill last night on the eve of his funeral. They drove from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Hall, where he is lying in state. They stood in silence before the catafalque as thousands of mourners filed past, almost unaware of their presence, and down river thousands more began to gather before St. Paul's Cathedral. The kings were Olaf of Norway, Frederick of Denmark, Constantine of Greece, and Baudouin of Belgium. The queen was Juliana of the Netherlands, who was accompanied by her husband, Prince Bernard. The all-night vigil. Here's an ad for Velomat car covers to protect your car. And we show there's also a movie listing. Fall of the Roman Empire was playing. How the West Was Won at the Casino Cinerama. They had a Cinerama in England. That's interesting. At the Coliseum Cinerama, Cleopatra with Elizabeth Taylor. At the Empire, Yellow Rolls Royce. Send Me No Flowers was playing. Topkapi. West Side Story was playing. At the Odeon, where I saw Star Wars, Mary Poppins was playing. As well as A Shot in the Dark with Peter Sellers. Where Love Has Gone. North by Northwest. It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World. So we see some of the movies playing right here. Charles de Gaulle, France meeting. Author, painter, this Superman of so many talents. See, in my lifetime, and the reason some of you may think I sound a little cynical or a little bit jaded, but I've lived long enough to see 180-degree reversals of how historical figures are being regarded. Because I've lived through the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the aughts, and I've seen history go back and forth depending on what's, well, for lack of a better word, what the fad is. And I've been through a lot of fads. I think the 90s was a fad decade full of, angst and kind of self-pity. And I think we evaluated our history from that lens. Whereas in the 80s, history was a lot more, well, let's look at it. In the 70s was a time period of angst, and they called it the me generation, and our history was definitely very harsh against people. The 80s it improved, then in the 90s it dropped back down again, then in the aughts it improved, and then the 2010s it's just to the point of almost stupidity. Let's see what the 20s has in store for us. Who knows, but I do think that the last generation will generally be different than the current generation. Here we have in Beloved, but when I was in London, there was a lot of, they were carefully trying to honor him without offending people too, which I found interesting. There was a carefulness about everything, where we want to honor him and pay tribute to him, but we still want to acknowledge that some of the things he said or some of the ways he acted might be offensive to people today. Well, that's true. Unfortunately, Weird Science, the movie that came out when I was a kid, is offensive to people today. So many things now are offensive to people today that we need to decide where we want to be. Do we want to continually be offended by things? And do we want to live in the sort of vanilla, bland world of walking on eggshells around everything? Or do we want to challenge things? It just depends on where we want to be. Although I think as times move on, there will be some changes. I'm a firm believer that things change. And now, well, our president has changed, and maybe people will settle down, and maybe we could all start to get along with each other. That would be really good. I would like to see that. And I'm not, here we go again. We feel like we have to qualify everything we say, but we do need to get to a point when all of us working people get along with each other. That has got to happen. This is 25 pounds reward is offered by the subcommission of the 5th Division on behalf of the special constable of the said division to anyone who brings the escaped prisoner of war Churchill, dead or alive, to this office. This is when he escaped from the Boers during the Boer War. A 25-pound reward. So, so he was a wanted man at this time. What is this? This is Mr. Churchill, a pictorial cavalcade of his life and extracts from his immortal speeches. Once again, the British Commonwealth and Empire emerges safe, undiminished, and united from a mortal struggle. Monstrous tyrannies which minced our life have been beaten to the ground and ruin, and a brighter radiance illuminates the imperial crown than any other which annals record. The light is brighter because of it, and comes not only from the fierce but fading glow of military achievements, but because there mingle with it in mellow splendor the hopes, joys, and blessings of almost all mankind. This is the true glory, and long will it gleam upon our forward path. And this is a whole book, extracts from his speeches that brought so much inspiration to people in a time when people were really enduring real problems. And there's a background of his history. I mean, this is a legit complete book, which is the kind of excellence you can expect if you buy these replica packs. You're getting historical records that you can hold, read, flip through, and read without being filtered through today's thought police. It's very interesting. But I stress again, you should always read your history and understand. Some people don't know that the Soviet Union, the United States, and Great Britain were the allies during World War II. And what happened? What changed? And the answer is in history when you read it. It's really a nice book to include in this. This is to certify that the post-accident convalescence of Honorable Winston S. Churchill necessitates the use of alcoholic spirits, especially at mealtimes. The quantity is naturally indefinite, but the minimum requirements would be 250 cubic centimeters. So here's a medical excuse for Churchill to drink. And it says cup on hand, which is sort of funny, but he was known for drinking quite a lot of alcohol. which I don't condone, but that was something he was known to do. Here we have a calendar from his desk, April 1943, with his jots on the days. And he has his lunch, his meals, his meetings, his cabinet meetings. It's hard to read his writing, but that's what my writing looks like on my notes sometimes, I think. I don't think this one's going to fit, so I'm going to have to fold it. And what is this? This is Clarion Calls to Courage. It's a small book. The premier's Clarion Calls to Courage, with comments by Allen Jr. Sound the clarion to fill the fife, to all the central world proclaim. One crowded hour of glorious life is worth an age without a name. Printed in Great Britain. It's like poetry, inspirational poetry. World War II, it's 1940, so more of his speeches, kind of a reminder of what he has done is to kindle a fire in the British hearts here and all over the world, which will glow long after all traces of the conflagration he has caused in London have been removed. He has lighted a fire which will burn with a steady and consuming flame until the last vestiges of Nazi tyranny have been burnt out of Europe, and until the old world and the new can join hands to rebuild the temple of man's freedom and man's honor upon foundations which will not soon or easily be overthrown. Very inspirational. Well, he was a larger than life person. He was a leader. And whether we like him or not, or whatever lens we decide to look at him through, no one can deny that probably he was the only thing that steered Great Britain through World War II. And just like President Roosevelt was here for us, we should always remember the people from our past, and we should be fair to them, because we're going to all be judged someday too. From the things that are said today and the times we're living in right now, and many of the people who feel that they're on the right side of history, I can assure you are not. And many of the people who are being called on the wrong side of history may actually be deemed to be on the right side of it. There is no way to tell how history is going to tell you, or is going to judge you, and it can judge you one way in 100 years and completely different the next 100 years. History is ever changing. It's organic. It's always revising and evolving, and the history that I read as a child in school is so completely different than the history being taught today. And it will be different again in another generation. And there's no telling whether it will veer left or right or be towards the center where it should be. That's the frustrating thing, but it's also the natural thing. It's nothing to complain about, because it's just life. Life is cycles. Life is this. It's never this. It's always changing. It's always going up and down. Each generation typically will defy the prior generation. That's just the way it is. So the main thing that I would say is remember it, read it. If you can get primary sources, read those. Because what you read on the internet has been filtered or edited or just out and out. It's just out and out dishonest. So study your history and remember it. Don't forget it, because it is true. But there's so many quotes about history. If you forget your history, you're doomed to repeat it. There's a lot of quotes about history that, I mean, they're all true to some extent. But it seems like we never learn. And I think the best quote about history, and I've said this before in my videos, is the only thing history really teaches us is that we never learn from our mistakes. And maybe that is something about being human. But nonetheless, I find it interesting to have all of this because I like to look in the past. It does help me chart my way through the future. So I'll do more videos like this, and I hope you'll tune in. And I hope you enjoyed this one. So until next time, please, if you like my channel, subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video. Leave a comment. And click the bell icon if you want to know about more videos. Until next time, bye.